Hello and welcome to the Ivy and the Arch podcast, a Major League Baseball podcast with an emphasis on the Chicago Cubs and the St. Louis Cardinals. My name is Aaron. I'm joined by Caleb as always, and this is episode 4 of the podcast. And just brief note before we get started. Once again, just want to thank everybody for the love and support we've gotten as we're still getting this thing off the ground here. I want to say we're very close to 50 subscribers on YouTube, which is a huge milestone that we're trying to hit. So if you're watching this podcast, if you want to go ahead and drop us a subscription on YouTube, we would really greatly appreciate it. Not only will you see, full-length episodes of this podcast on the channel, but we also will upload shorts. We try to upload daily. If not, it'll be multiple times a week of just little snippets for quick viewing of informational bits from the podcast that we hope to reach out to a broader audience. If you're listening on Spotify, we greatly appreciate you listening there as well. Every stream helps, every follow, every like helps. Yeah, it's been great so far, and I cannot wait to keep this going. Caleb, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I think we, knock on wood, we finally have the audio issues fixed for this episode, which has been plaguing us for the last few. So hopefully we can get through this whole recording without any bugs or anything like that. But yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Not a whole lot, I don't think, on the Cubs and Cardinals specifically, but I think we do have a lot just in general baseball consensus to talk about. A couple more unfortunate injuries that happened this past week. World Baseball Classic in absolute full gear, and I know you've got a little segment that I can't wait to hear on that. And then at the end of this episode, we're actually going to do our full MLB, not just Cubs Cardinals specific. That'll come next week when we get closer to roster crunch time. But we're going to do our full encompassing MLB season predictions, which we're just going to go over who we think is going to win each division, the following wild card teams in the playoffs, as well as a World Series pick and some award picks. But yeah, how have the World Baseball Classic, just before we get started on the Cubs Cardinals stuff, I haven't been watching as much of the games as I did the first week, but the few games that I did catch, it's been entertaining. Entertaining baseball besides the unfortunate injuries that have happened. Judging by what you've seen, what are your thoughts so far on this year's Baseball Classic?
There's been some really good games and I think some surprising teams. Team Mexico has really came out of nowhere, in my opinion, and just completely befuddled me. And when they trashed Team USA, I think it kind of opened my eyes to the whole thing. And I would not be surprised to see them beat Team Japan, especially without Shohei Ohtani in the semifinals, and see them move on to the finals. So, Randy Arozarena, he lives for those big moments. It's insane. If you all remember the 2020 postseason,
Mm,
kind of the first on the map appearance for him. Um, he was hitting the ball like crazy, and he makes some really good plays out in the outfield as well. So he's doing the same thing. He even came out the other day and said that his catch in that win over um, Puerto Rico, right?
yeah. Hmm.
That win over Puerto Rico, that's the best moment in his career. It's better than anything he's done in even the World Series. So it means a lot to these players, and like you said, I'm going to get into that a little bit when it comes to Team USA, the team I'm most closely following, of course. But no, some of these countries, man, the way they have shown up and the support they've had from the fan bases, it's just so exciting to see.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys are wearing their hearts on their sleeves, and we'll talk about that more later on. But it's cool to see the passion from these guys, especially even in the first inning. These guys are going out there beating their chests, like after they get a strikeout or a catch or something.
Yeah.
It's a great atmosphere of baseball. I wish I could be at it. Hopefully someday we can go catch it. Maybe the next World Baseball Classic. That'd be a fun little trip to do.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, I'd love to post up and see one of those games, especially against one of the teams that are always there, like a Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic
oh yeah,
or Team Mexico,
yeah,
even.
yeah. A lot of big names in there. So we'll kind of kick it off. I have a very, very brief overview of Cubs spring training. Not a whole lot of noticeable performances. I really only have three highlights here that I want to talk about, and they're all pitchers. Just a general overview. The Cubs are 10-10 as of today in spring training. The hitting is kind of stalling a little bit. We're still not seeing a lot out of Dansby Swanson hitting wise, which slightly alarming. I would like to see his batting average higher than 030 or 040 something, I think is what it is at this point. It again, I said it last episode. I'll say it again. This is spring training. these guys figure it out as it gets into the year. I'm not overly concerned. But three pitchers that I just wanted to touch on. The first one is a right-handed reliever that we signed this offseason, Julian Merriweather. He was with the Blue Jays previously. He's looked really solid in spring training. 4 1/3 innings, 3 hits, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. He seems like a really solid bet to make the opening day bullpen, especially with how some of the almost starting pitcher competitions are playing out with Sampson and Javier Assad and other of those guys. He struggled last year with Toronto. He had a 6.75 ERA in 26 2/3 innings. But his fastball velocity, he hurls it. He can throw it upwards 98, 99. His fastball velo ranks in the 94th plus percentile, according to Baseball Savant, which is one of my favorite metric tools to look at advanced stats of players. He's got a pretty good wipeout slider against righties, and the fact that he's looked this solid through spring training, we don't have a lot of good quality high velocity guys in that bullpen, and I think Merriweather has pretty much shown a shot and will be on that 26-man roster. So I've been impressed with what I've seen from him throughout the spring training. Another right-handed reliever, one of the signings that happened right at the beginning of spring training, Michael Fulmer, longtime Detroit Tiger starting pitcher, was a big-time prospect at one point, ended up converting as a reliever the last 2 years, 1 full year in Detroit, and then he split last year with Detroit and the Twins after being moved at the trade deadline. He's also looked really solid in spring training, 6 innings, 2 hits, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts, no earned runs allowed yet. He's got an interesting 5 pitch mix because, as being a former starter, those guys need to have more than your general fastball, slider, changeup mix as a reliever has. He leans pretty heavily on his cutter, which gets good movement. He's got a mid four seam and a sinker, and he doesn't use his changeup or his curveball as much, but all those weapons are there. And I think I love seeing these. I don't want to call them failed starters. It's like Andrew Chafin and that obvious shirts that he had made for him, the failed starter one. I don't want to call them failed starters because they did make it as a starter at one point, but I love seeing these guys who were once starters with really good stuff move to the bullpen and embrace it, because if you have a reliever like that who has that 5 pitch mix, you can put him in so many different spots depending on the hitter, depending on the next couple hitters in the lineup. That if he's not, if he doesn't have his cutter, he's got a four seam he can fall back on. If he doesn't have his sinker, he's got a changeup and a curveball he can fall back on. So, when you get these relievers who are those standard 2-3 pitch guys, if one of their pitches isn't working, and like example, their fastball isn't working, that's problematic because then the hitters know to sit on the off speed stuff. But then you get these relievers who have the 5 pitches or so, like Fulmer does. It provides more of that mystery. You don't know what they're going to throw, even if one of their 4 or 5 pitches are not playing as it should be. So I've liked what I've seen from him. I think he's going to be a really versatile piece, and I would not be surprised to see him in a more Keegan Thompson-esque role, not necessarily starting games, but maybe backpacking games for a guy like Wisniewski, or maybe if Killian comes up, having him go behind Killian, because he can give you 2, 3, 4, 5 innings. He's done that as a starter. You give him the right situation to be in, and I think he'll thrive. So I've liked what I've seen from him. 2 righties who should play a pretty prominent role in this year's bullpen. And the third note that I have is just on Hayden Wisniewski. Been singing his praises all spring training long. Was singing his praises all last year. He looked really great. He did get knocked around a little bit on Friday, which was a nice reality check, I think. I'm not mad about it. I like that he's kind of getting exposed a little bit, because you don't want him, being pristine through spring training and maybe overinflating that ego a little bit, and then the first start of the year just getting absolutely shelled.
Yeah.
But he had a 3 1/3 inning on Friday, 4 hits, 4 earned runs, 2 walks, but still had 6 strikeouts in 3 1/3 against the Dodgers. So his spring training ERA is sitting around 3, I think, which is more than respectable. I don't think this start cost him any points in the fifth starter competition. I still think that's his and won't change with this last full week of spring training. So I still really like what I've seen with him. His stuff is still filthy. Obviously, you can judge that by the 6 strikeouts he had, even though he got hammered a little bit. Loved what I've seen. I think him in the back of that rotation is going to be a great start to the year. And that's really all the notes I had. Other than that, I mean, Madrigal seems to be holding his own really well at third base. It's kind of been surprising. He's looking, as of right now, as possibly our best defensive third baseman. Again, it's just spring training, but the plays he's made has kind of shown that he took it seriously when Ross told him, hey, you're going to be playing a lot more third after Swanson was signed and Horner moved to second. So I like what I've seen from him. I think we'll be seeing him maybe more at third base than I originally thought, which I'd be fine with. He won't strike out a lot, and so if you need somebody with more power in the lineup, you can go with Wisdom. Or if you want somebody to give you a more balanced approach, Madrigal's there, and he's shown he can hold his own. That's really all I've got out of Mesa and the Cubs spring training this year. Caleb, what's going on down in Jupiter?
All right, so the Redbirds on the rotation side of things, Dakota Hudson got hammered earlier today. Just absolutely hammered. He gave up 5 earned runs over 3 and 2/3 innings. And I will say he gave up some ground balls that, if hit to third, and Nolan Arenado were the third baseman standing there, the play may have been made. So I
Yeah,
do have to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt on that side of things. But the fact of the matter is it doesn't matter who's at third if you're giving up balls over the wall, which he did give up a home run too.
right.
So um, I don't know. Hudson was already the guy on the outside looking on the inside. So I don't know if an injury occurs. He's probably the one who's going to get the first look over some of the other guys more prospect wise, like Zach Thompson or Matthew Liberator. But um, next year, when you have 4 over 5 starters walking or retiring, in Wainwright's case, you have to start looking to the future. And Hudson has almost a tailor-made spot for that rotation if he can just go one more year of getting some long relief appearances. But he's just not
Right.
has not looked great. I know there was talk that he might improve with the new pitching coach Dusty Blake, but we haven't seen that yet. So
Yeah.
it's obviously still spring. There's plenty of time to kind of improve on that front, but not super optimistic about that. So we'll have to see. Um, Switching gears to the infield, Mason Wynn has looked great. The team already said that they're not planning to rush him and not bringing him up. I think he's a staple in next year's lineup with um, possibly shifting Edman out of that starting shortstop role and more into a kind of a dedicated utility role, which of course they already have with Brendan Donovan. The point I'm trying to get at is they have so much depth that I don't want to trade away the wrong guy, but the rotation could just use some real solid help. Um, so if you're looking forwards to next year, Mason Wynn's coming, and that's great. But right now they do have kind of a log jam, and that's why I think they're comfortable with not pushing him at all to come up and be the everyday shortstop. And there's no point, and I've always thought this about most prospects who are really promising. There's no point in bringing these guys up to play twice a week.
Right. I want to
Leave them in
reference.
AAA.
Yeah, I want to reference that tweet real quick that you sent to our baseball group chat on Twitter, the one about how the Cardinals can fill the field with MLB caliber players twice. That's an incredible problem to have. I've got the
It
tweet.
really could.
I got the tweet pulled up in front of me here. If you want to field the Cardinals, depth twice, the first would be Contreras, Goldschmidt, Gorman, Arenado, DeYoung, O'Neill, Carlson, Nootbaar. And then if you wanted to field like a B team, Herrera, Yepes, Edman, Donovan, Wynn, Gomez, Walker, and Bro. I mean, come on. That B team could probably win 60 games at a
Yeah,
minimum.
I think that B team would give the AL Central a run for its money. I'm just gonna be honest.
I will say with the caveat with that is that's not including starting pitching depth, which is, I talked about that in previous episodes, a little thin, and I still worry about that. But offensively, it's incredible. It's incredible the
Correct, and I
depth.
think that's why you have to take some of those players. I'm not talking about like trading DeYoung because nobody's gonna give up a elite or even serviceable starter if Paul DeYoung is the centerpiece. But you have to kind of look at your options and see what do you prefer to have. And this goes into my next player I wanted to talk about. Nolan Gorman has looked incredible. I just don't know where he is going to be slotted into play every day.
Yeah,
I don't currently see it with the flexibility that Tommy Edman gives this team, including his elite defense at shortstop, his Gold Glove shortstop caliber play, and Brendan Donovan doing it at second base primarily. I know he might get some starts over in right field if there's an injury there during the season, or even over at shortstop or third base if they're going to give Arenado a day off. But Nolan Gorman does not really have a spot on this team at the moment. Both him and Donovan are also left-handed batters, and
yeah,
I think that is a bit of a problem. And Tommy Edman is a switch hitter, so you can't
yeah,
even work in, you know, some sort of split system because either way, those three guys who are kind of the carousel of second base slash shortstop, it just doesn't really work super well.
Yeah.
So um, if he can get some starts in at DH, I love it. Him and Yepes switching off sounds like a great plan. But then you're going to bring in the issue of, okay, left-handed batter on the mound. It might be a good day to get Contreras in at DH and
Right.
get, if it's Kisner, which it's looking like it probably will be, um, getting Kisner to start at catcher just to get Contreras off his knees for a little while. You have a problem there. There's just not enough spots in this offense for all of those guys to play. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the answer is. I know that John Mozeliak isn't a guy who's going to rush a trade and send Gorman somewhere, but he's kind of, I think, the biggest upside to get you the better pitcher.
I agree with that, and I think the depth that you guys have is going to play really well into your hand. It's at the trade deadline, especially. Um, the track record that Mo has the last 2 years of going out and getting these gritty starting pitchers is only going to be able to get him a higher pedigree of that type of starting pitcher if that's what you truly need at the deadline, based on the
Mhm.
way that these guys are performing. Now, quick question on that too, with the whole roster construction as it is currently, are you factoring Jordan Walker in on that 26-man opening day or no?
No.
Okay. Because I'm looking at,
Should he be? Yeah,
yeah,
but no, I don't. I don't see it because a week and a half ago, Dylan Carlson was not hitting the way he is now. And if he continues to do that, the Cardinals don't have any reason to demote Dylan Carlson from that starting, I say center fielder spot. I think he's the best defensive center fielder.
yeah,
Tyler O'Neill is faster, and
hmm,
Tyler O'Neill has won a gold glove in left field.
right, right.
And Lars Nootbaar has taken the center field spot in Team Japan and just ran with it. So this team has three center fielders.
That's and that another great problem to have, because I was listening to a snippet from Ian Happ's podcast, The Compound, where he was talking about how center field is the most difficult of the three to play, obviously, because you have to cover the most ground, you have to be more aware of everything. But having three outfielders who could truly hold their own at center field, and those including winning gold gloves in center field, defensively, that's more than you could ever ask for from your outfielders.
Right. Now, in a perfect world, those three guys stay healthy and you don't rush Walker. Walker comes up whenever a spot opens or whatever. Dylan Carlson spent the majority of last year hurt.
Yeah,
Tyler O'Neill spent the majority of last year hurt.
yeah,
Lars Nootbaar has not had some big extensive injury that's kept him on the bench for a while. But until these guys can prove to me that they can stay healthy and keep their spots that way, I don't know. Maybe
yeah,
Walker is the next guy up. I think that they are willing to put a Juan Yepes out in right field if they have to. So if you have an injury to either left field or center, then Nootbaar is the first guy who's going to shift over.
right.
But um, plenty of outfielders to
Yeah,
play. So
that's great. A lot of
you
versatility.
definitely have a solid outfield player and a solid infield player that could be packaged in a deal. I'm
Yeah.
just saying.
Yeah, and I
I
wouldn't think that would happen super early on either. I think it would cause an
no.
injury for that to happen, if anything, but I think that's more of the trade deadline focus. And that's where another problem could come into play, is because it's like you got to showcase these guys that they can hit major league and that they can play the field major league. So if you talk about maybe optioning a Nolan Gorman to AAA to get him regular at bats, that's not really doing him any good, because teams aren't acquiring players so that they can, based on what they can do at AAA. They're acquiring players based on what they can
Right.
do at the major league level.
Right. And I think that's just one more reason why Walker could find himself down in AAA at the start of the season is
Hmm.
because he's not going anywhere anyway.
Yeah.
They don't need to showcase a Jordan Walker, so just get him regular at bats in AAA. He also didn't spend a lot of time in AAA. Not that I'm too concerned about that. I will always throw out the Juan Soto point of how he just skipped AAA entirely.
Hmm.
And we've talked about this on this podcast before. Double A is the stopping point. You can
Right.
either hit double A pitching or you can't.
Yep.
And if you can hit double A pitching to a great extent, you are probably not going to struggle in triple A.
Agreed.
So, last note here, Taylor Motter, a former Red Sox, most recently Cincinnati Red, he is lighting it up this spring. He has been insane. I'm not sure, because of all of the reasons I just said in the last 5 minutes, I'm not sure there's a roster spot for him, but it feels almost silly to have to keep him in AAA with how much he's been hitting the ball.
Yeah.
Do you? I bet you that's not updated. I was gonna pull up his stats, but um, he has been playing third base almost the entire time that Arenado has been in the World Baseball Classic. That's kind of been the best part, and I know I hinted towards that in our first episode, is we've gotten to see Yepes more, we've gotten to see Taylor Motter more. We get to see these guys who would be behind Arenado and Goldschmidt, and even Edman for that sake when he was with Team Korea, because these guys are gone. Like, we know these guys have a roster spot saved for them. So it's nice to get to see a little bit more from these guys who might not have gotten as much playing time in a normal spring training year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But other than that, that is all my major notes on the Redbirds. We got Adam Wainwright starting tonight for Team USA. I'm really excited to see that. He's a guy who, given the clutch moment, he has always come through.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see him in an elimination game.
I have no doubts tonight that he's going to figure it out, especially with the struggles of some of the other pitchers on Team USA. I think he's really going to put the team on his back tonight. I do think as well, I don't see Cuba as a really huge threat, but I do think we need Mike Trout to come up big tonight. I think he had an offer last night, and I don't think that can happen again if they're going to win tonight.
Yep.
Yeah, but before we touch on the World Baseball Classic, I just want to go over a couple general MLB notes, touching on injuries again, which has been an unfortunate chunk of our podcast talking about this, and it's really sad to see. But probably the most prominent one we can talk about is Edwin Diaz, the closer for the New York Mets, signed a huge extension this offseason after a truly dominant relief performance. I believe he had a sub-1 ERA last year, over 100 strikeouts. He throws absolute gas. Just an absolute unfortunate injury happening post game in the celebration. They were jumping around on the mound. I remember watching that game live after they ended it, which, by the way, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic was one of the best baseball games I've ever watched. I mean, it was just pure, and it wasn't even because it was a super high scoring game or anything super crazy like that. The energy from not only the fans, but the players, the way that everybody was playing, great baseball game, and how much was on the line too. The two powerhouse teams in the DR and Puerto Rico, huge elimination game. But yeah, he was celebrating off the mound. Teammates were jumping around him. I remember watching in the huddle. I saw somebody on the ground. I didn't know who it was at first, but he ended up on the ground. He tore a patellar tendon in his right knee. Had to be wheeled off of the field. Just really somber scene. Horrible way to come off of a big win like that. And he he's out for the year. I believe he had surgery the other day. He is going to be sidelined. I don't think he's expected to make it back this year. He just horrible for one of those guys too, especially for the Mets who need everything to go right this year. It's just a tough injury. It's a tough injury to see and swallow. And as a baseball fan, you never want to see that happen, especially on a not a game time injury. Just something freak like that. But it was horrible to watch. All the best to Edwin Diaz. All the best to Mets fans. Honestly, that's not something you want to see, especially after Quintana goes down for half the year. You had the first little injury scare with Kodai Senga. I believe Brandon Nimmo also tweaked his knee the other night. I don't have that on my notes here, but I think he tweaked his knee a little bit. I don't know an update on that.
They're falling apart, man.
It's too early for
They
them to be
said he
falling
would
apart.
be reevaluated in a week, so I don't think it's the most serious thing,
Right.
but I would guess opening day is probably gonna be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it's just a reevaluation at this point, they're just being cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
The other big injury happened last night. Jose Altuve, second baseman of the Houston Astros, was hit in the hand by a pitch from USA pitcher Daniel Bard. Broke his right thumb. He had surgery or will be having surgery on it and is sidelined for a minimum of 2 months. And I want to emphasize minimum because that's what was said in the injury report from, I believe, Ken Rosenthal or Jeff Passan. But he will be out for a minimum of 2 months, which is really tough to see. He is, we can talk about the cheating scandal all we want. I will never advocate for that Astros team. I will never advocate for most players on that Astros team. Jose Altuve is kind of one of those guys I might advocate for. He seems remorseful enough for it. He's a good dude, and it's tough to see. I don't really know. I'm looking up now what the Astros depth is looking like at second base outside of Jose Altuve, because obviously Jeremy Pena is playing short in the absence of Carlos Correa. Bregman's at third. It's looking like right now David Hensley, name I'm not super familiar with, is currently slated to be their starting second baseman with not a lot of quality depth behind him. So if he's truly out for the first 2 months of the year, that's not going to be super great for them. I would not be surprised to see them in the market for a second baseman. David Bodie, Miles Mastroboni, Zach McKinstry, Astros, if you're listening. We got options. But no, I don't think they're going to enter the season without making a trade at this point. If I had to put some money on it, I do think they'll be, even if it's minor.
I think they'll pick up a minor guy. This isn't a team that you're going to have the Mariners battling you for that division. I don't think it's going to be to the point where they have to trade the farm for a shortstop, or sorry, a second baseman that will like hinder them in any way. They're going to, slap a band-aid on it and they'll be fine 2 months later.
I would agree with that, except I don't like the depth behind him or the lack thereof. I don't think they're going to go out and get a big name second baseman, but I do think they will bring in somebody else. It's really honestly bad timing. I don't know if you saw today, but the Rockies closed the deal with Druxen Profar, 1 year, $7 million-ish deal. He would have been, I think he can play second if I remember that correctly. That would have been a nice little stopgap to put him in because then you can also play him in the outfield if Chas McCormick or Jake Myers on the Astros aren't playing well. But yeah, that's another tough injury.
A slightly used Taylor Motter.
Slightly, ever so slightly used. Well, hey, I mean, if they want to go big, Astros do have a lot of nice pitching depth. If Nolan Gorman is somewhat expendable at this point, he would play really, really nice in Houston at second base. I don't know. I don't know.
It's true. We'll
Right.
take Christian Javier. Thank you.
Ryan Presley too. Back of the bullpen guy. Need two pitchers for him.
Christian Javier, Ryan Presley,
There we go.
or Nolan Gorman. You can have Liberator.
Yeah,
We'll trade the buddies.
trade the buddies. Got to keep them together. They're a package deal at this point. Other two injury notes, three injury notes that I have here. Freddie Freeman pulled out of the World Baseball Classic for Team Canada with a strained hamstring. Canada wasn't going to last very long in this Baseball Classic anyways, so it's not like it's a huge blow to them, but definitely something to keep an eye on for the Dodgers alongside Gavin Lux's season-ending injury. You really don't want anybody else on that team to go down of star power because they don't have a lot of star power. I shouldn't say that. They don't have as many offensive weapons left. That are surefire.
Their depth
things.
just isn't there.
No, that's something I'm noticing too. Looking over these pages, it's thin depth on a lot of these powerhouse teams that we saw last year, which is interesting. Cade Cavalli, Washington Nationals starting pitcher. He's their fourth overall and the 58th overall prospect, according to MLB.com, is down with Tommy John surgery. He had a solid year at AAA last year. Didn't really have a great debut at the Nats. And honestly, I have more concerns over his career trajectory at this point. He'll be probably pushing 26, if not already there, by the time that he makes it back from this Tommy John surgery, if the 18-month-ish time frame holds up. And to be 26 after having Tommy John with only 4 innings of Major League Ball on your resume, I don't really think the Nationals can count on him for much. I could be totally wrong. I want to be proven wrong, but the lack of performance at the major league level leading up to the Tommy John surgery would not ease me in any way, shape, or form. It's probably better that the Nationals are going through their rebuild now because they have time to address the pitchers outside of him by the time he were to be back. But another Tommy John for a younger starting pitcher is never a good thing to see. So best wishes to him. The last injury I have to touch on here, Tony Gonsolin, right ankle injury. I don't believe he will be ready to start the year. I think it was very cautious, the wording they used with him. A couple guys were saying they don't think he'll be ready for opening day. I think he'll be ready shortly after. But then back to the depth conversation, we're looking at the Dodgers rotation without Tony Gonsolin, consisting of Clayton Kershaw, who, albeit he is getting older, but he can still be Clayton Kershaw for you. Julio Urias, who is balling out for, I believe, Mexico, right? In the World Baseball Classic. He's playing pretty well. He's a bona fide 1-2 in a rotation. And then you have Noah Syndergaard, who is kind of a wild card. You don't know what you're going to get from him. He's not the same Thor that it once was. I did see that his velocity is ticking back up, which is a good sign. Outside of him, you have Dustin May coming off of Tommy John surgery, who looked good down the stretch last year when he did come back, but you also don't know what you're getting from him over the course of a full season. And then your fifth spot is kind of up for debate at that point. You're not getting Walker Buehler back this year, and without Tony Gonsolin in there, I would, if I'm playing the Dodgers, I would favor to face their 3-4-5 guys than their 5-1-2 or 2-1 1-2-3 guys in that rotation. Yeah, just lack of depth across the board, kind of concerning. But I'm sure it'll all shake itself out. The Dodgers will somehow win 110 games like they always do. Injuries aside, the only other two notes that I have are Trevor Bauer, who was accused of sexual assault, was cleared. His suspension was reduced by the commissioner or by a personal arbitrator, one of the two. He was released by the Dodgers and ended up signing a contract with the Yokohama DNA Baystars of the Nippon Professional Baseball Organization in Japan. It's a 1 year, $4 million deal with incentives. I was a little surprised a dwindling last place team didn't take a flyer on him, especially because he would have
I
been at the league minimum.
I gotta be honest. I don't think. I don't know, man. Part of me thinks that he did have an offer from a team that he didn't want to go to.
That's very true. That's very true. It could be. I think there may be
I don't want
more.
to be like conspiracy theorist to this. I
No,
just think that he wants to go pitch somewhere where he's going to look really good and
yeah.
then come back and try to get a payday.
And you know what? Maybe his PR team told him, hey, we've got these offers from these 10-5 teams, however many it may have been, that he would get paid same regardless. We think it's better for you to go somewhere neutral where there's not going to be a whole lot of media attention on you. Go ball out, go make amends for what you were accused of, even if you truly don't believe you did it or however that may be. Um, Ball out, put the controversy behind you, and then maybe next offseason, if you put up stellar numbers in the MVP, a team will take a flyer on you again, and you'll be able to make more than the league minimum. So
Yeah.
he's getting paid 20-ish, 30-ish million from the Dodgers regardless. So it really doesn't matter financially at this point. But we'll see what he can do in Japan this year. It'll be interesting. The competition over there is pretty steep. I do think he'll ball out. He's a filthy pitcher when he's healthy. Personal issues aside, that'll be an interesting storyline to follow this year. And the last player note that I have is that Shohei Otani and Lars Nootbaar are becoming best friends, and it makes me want to vomit. Quite frankly, I hate seeing videos of them buddy buddy on the baseball field and in the dugout, and all I can think about is Otani in a Cardinals uniform next year. Um,
Well, lucky for you, it's not going to happen.
you know,
Bill
I,
DeWitt Jr. would never shell out 500 million, let alone 300 million for one player.
right.
Um,
I also worry about him. Even if it's not next year, trade deadline. I mean, if you've got guys who are performing well and you're really deep in the playoff hunt at the deadline, and Otani's price isn't as drastic as everybody is making it out to seem. Packaging Gorman plus, Libator obviously, plus whoever else it may be, might be enough to get it done, especially if the other teams who are leading their division or in the hunt don't have the same prospect capital and quality as the Cardinals do.
yeah, and that's obviously out of Otani's control. That's your best chance of seeing him in a St. Louis uniform, in my opinion.
I don't even want to see
Which
them.
I would love to see if this team is, clear division favorites by the trade deadline and they need that extra punch of a starter and shoot, I don't know, maybe Contreras goes down. I'm not trying to, wish any bad juju on him at all, but you just don't know. And if your main source of catcher and DH goes down and all of a sudden you now have Kisner or whoever is your starting catcher and you have that opening at DH where Shohei would fit in perfectly, fantastic.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah,
But it makes me sad the way that Shohei was pulled back to the Angels after this quarterfinal game,
right.
and part of me wants to see him just say like, "What are you gonna do?
Yeah,
Like, what do you? No, I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna represent my country because this means a lot to me."
yeah,
But
that's tough to see. And I guess it's perfect transition into the World Baseball Classic. So, Caleb, I'm going to give you the floor here because I know you've got some thoughts on Team USA specifically. So, take it away, sir. What are your thoughts on this year's World Baseball Classic?
I would just like to talk about Team USA for a minute and some of the things I've been observing. Last fall, when we started getting all these guys to sign up for Team USA and commit, it was great. It was fantastic, and I couldn't have been more excited for the potential of this team, especially considering that most of them stayed in. The issue comes with the pitching. It starts and ends with the pitching for the most part. I cannot fathom how you have Mike Trout, the best baseball player on the planet, except for maybe his teammate. I don't know. That's it depends on how you want to look
It's
at it.
debatable.
Mike
It's
Trout,
debatable.
Mike Trout, top 2 baseball player on the planet.
Yeah.
Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, reigning MVP, Pete Alonso, Trey Turner, all these stars that sign up for this tournament, and your best pitcher might be Miles Mikolas or Adam Wainwright,
Yep.
or I'll give my guy Lance Lynn a shout out. I'm not gonna dog on Clayton Kershaw too much for having to pull out because he has had some injury history anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But man, what is with the lack of Max Scherzer? This guy who's so competitive and so passionate, and Justin Verlander, who just won a Cy Young Award, and Jacob DeGrom, who, best pitcher on the planet. All of these guys just signed deals for over $40 million each. And you're telling me that you can't make 3 or 4 extra starts this spring? That's
Yep.
ridiculous.
Yep.
Get out of here.
Yep.
Our rotation with this offense, I always think of the meme of like the Cadillac in like the trailer park or whatever.
Yeah. Yes.
I I cannot even fathom the lack of support that the starting pitchers who could represent Team USA have given to this tournament. This should be a walk in the park. We shouldn't be giving up 11 runs to Team Mexico. Randy Arozarena or not. Half that lineup are guys who could play in the MLB. The other half can't. And if they could, they would be here already.
Mm-hmm.
So don't tell me that like we were gonna have a close game with Cuba because we can only score 8 runs, but guess what? We gave up 7. Like the final score tonight, if Team USA wins, is going to at least be 9 or 8 to 6 or 7 or something like that.
Yep.
And I just want to go on a side note here. Anybody with a brain can know that the potential and the skill level of these starters is not extremely high.
Yeah.
So, excuse me that Mark DeRosa is the best we could get for Team USA. This guy, I've seen interviews with him. He seems like a really likable guy. But why are we letting Daniel Bard continue to throw after he just broke one of the best second basemen in the league's hand?
Yeah.
Why are we letting him continue to throw and give up runs without even a competitive swing from the batter?
Right.
Like, this isn't a long season. This is a 2-week tournament.
Yeah.
Use your guys.
I
You
will.
have Ryan Presley in that bullpen. You have
Yeah.
several starters who could come out. Miles Mikolas was ready to go last night.
Yeah, I will say in his defense, I don't want to interrupt your point here, but I will say in his defense, he has talked about, and other managers from these World Baseball Classic teams have talked about their frustrations with the parent clubs and the pitch restrictions that they're putting on their pitchers, which I think is another reason we're not seeing a lot of these bigger name guys go in this tournament because of the pitch restrictions. But I know for a fact that managers and GMs of the parent clubs want their starting pitchers to stay on a starting pitcher time frame at this point. So even though Michaelis might have been available last night, I don't think DeRosa was even able to put him in the game if he wanted to, because he needs to stay stretched out as a starter. So even if you only put him in for 3 innings, that's not giving him enough rest as a normal 5-day, 6-day buildup would be for him in that rotation. So I think he's handicapped a little bit with the innings limits. I agree, though, there needs to be better pitchers on Team USA. But I won't defend him on the Daniel Bard thing. That he should have pulled him the moment he hit Altuve. But I think the reason he didn't pull him is because he needs to be able to preserve some of those other guys and not overwork them and piss off the parent club, and then have the parent club pull them back to spring training rather than the World Baseball Classic.
I think at this point, then, don't even compete. Like, don't even let him go.
Yeah.
If you're telling me that, you can't pull Daniel Bard because Ryan Presley is only allowed to pitch whatever. And I know he's the closer, but the guy who came in right after, who is that? Jason Adam.
Yep.
Jason Adam's one of the better relievers. You can't bring Jason Adam in an inning early?
Right.
If it's that tight, don't even let these guys compete.
This is where I wish that his bench coach, pitching coach, all those guys would be in his ear a little more, because he hasn't managed before. Like, this is his first managerial experience.
That's the problem. That's where this entire problem stems, is the fact that they got a TV guy to come out and coach or manage the best starting lineup in the history of baseball. Because that's what we're looking at here. You can't tell me that there's ever been a better starting lineup.
No, I think
Not even DR.
No, I think they looked at kind of maybe the Aaron Boone situation with the Yankees, where Boone had never managed before. They brought him down, and he didn't flop right away. So I figured they were probably trying to give DeRosa a shot. And as a former player, DeRosa, he should have that instinct to manage. But the bigger picture, like you were talking about, why are we having DeRosa manage this team? Where's Joe Madden? Joe Madden could
Right.
deploy a team. I feel like Joe Madden is the perfect World Baseball Classic manager because he can get funky with a lineup and he can get
Yeah.
funky with a rotation. The caveat to that is I wouldn't trust him to manage the pitching staff because he's shown he can't really do that. But that type of manager who's not currently active in the game would be perfect for that. John Gibbons, former Blue Jays manager, he would be fine, I would think. There's a lot of guys who could do it. And in all honesty, why aren't you letting, I get it, current managers can't leave their spring training teams. What about current bench coaches? I mean, they're not going to
Sure.
be missing a whole lot. They'll pick up the slack when they get back. They'll do all their game prep, before or afterwards
Sure.
for their parent club. But I agree. Mark DeRosa probably not the best choice for that. But yeah, we need better pitchers in the World Baseball Classic, and we honestly need better managers, at least for Team USA. Somebody who's been in that environment before and knows what they're doing.
And just on another note, and this, if you want to make the case about pitch limits and all that stuff, that's fine. What's up with the lineup, man? Game one against Great Britain, Kyle Schwarber saved that team. He won them that game,
Yeah.
and he sat the next two games.
Right.
I don't care if a left-hander's on the mound. You have a guy who has the ability every single at bat to send a ball over the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Stop being cute and play in the righty-lefty game and play the guys who are going to play.
Especially, pool play, you might be able to get away with that a little bit in the weak pool that USA had. Maybe not weak, but in single elimination games like we're playing now, you got to play your guys. And Schwarber
Yeah.
is that guy. Don't save him for the ninth inning. Schwarber, most of the time, he's not going to be able to come in on a pinch hit and deliver. He needs, a look or two at the pitchers before he can finally get adjusted in the box, like he did in, what was it, game one. It took him one or two at bats before he finally slugged that home run.
Yeah.
That's the type of player that he is. So I agree with you there. Don't play the righty lefty matchup game at this point because look how that happened. Look how that worked out for who did we play last night? Columbia. That's what their
Yeah.
manager did. They went and played the matchup game and let up a Trey Turner grand slam when their other guy was doing just fine at that point. Um, so I guess not just fine. He loaded the bases, but that being said, that just kind of goes to
Not an
show.
error.
Yeah, on the World Baseball Classic stage, if you're playing the 162 season and you've got guys available, play the matchup game because that's what have people in your bullpen set aside for. But in the World Baseball Classic, when you're working with what you got, play your dogs because they're going to go out there and give it everything. And especially guys who have shown so far in this tournament that they can go out there and perform like Schwarber, play them. It's not rocket science.
We've just had too many guys come out and say, Mookie Betts coming out and saying, don't be afraid to hurt
Yep.
feelings. Okay, so pull Daniel Bard when he doesn't have it.
Yep.
Pull him. We're not, playing for second place here. This team has came out and said that anything less than winning the whole thing would be a disappointment. Show me that, because they have not showed that. There's been no energy in this team whatsoever. The first time I've even seen them jump out of the dugout with excitement was after the Grand Slam last night.
Yep.
Come on, man.
Yep.
It's like you want to win. You look at Venezuela, they're going nuts. You look at Colombia, they're going nuts. You look at the DR and Puerto Rico, of course they're going nuts. This is what they live for. Every player would tell you that this is the most important games that they'll ever play in their life.
Yep.
So why does Team USA seem like they don't even want to be there?
Right. It's
embarrassing.
It is. It is embarrassing. And tonight, Team USA is playing Cuba, which I want to add is just not overly talented. I'm not taking away from them by any means. The fact that they've made it this far proves enough. But the prime hitters on their team are Yohan Moncada and Luis Robert.
They should steamroll this team.
They should steamroll this
and I'm
team
not
easily.
confident they will.
Here's the other
I'm
thing,
just
too.
not.
The starting pitching matchup tonight is Adam Wainwright versus Ronis Elias, who is a Chicago Cubs pitcher, by the way. Filthy stuff, but prone to walks and earned runs. So they should jump on him tonight. If they don't jump on him tonight, I don't think they'll win this game. They got to get him out of the game early, and they got to set the tone early. Because Miami's not going to be necessarily for them. Miami's full of all these people from Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico coming to watch these games. Players from Cuba, or fans from Cuba, are going to come and watch this game, and so the stadium's going to probably be more balanced towards Team Cuba. But USA's got to set the tone early tonight, and they got to set it hard and steamroll Cuba if they want. in my opinion, and probably yours, to prove that they have a shot at winning this thing. I don't think anybody's beaten Japan. Japan's the only unbeaten team in the World Baseball Classic right now, but they got a steamroll them
Out of
tonight.
that, I will say that your pool just matters so much because if
Yeah.
Cuba was in any other pool, they wouldn't be here.
Right.
And
Yep.
that's probably why Team Japan is undefeated. Also, again, giant, elephant in the room. They've had Shohei Ohtani this entire time.
Yep.
They're not going to have Ohtani for the semifinals and the championship.
Right. Right. That's up to Lars
My
Nootbaar.
last note here has my last note here has just been Mike Trout. I want to give him some credit and reel it back a little bit because he has rarely played in a meaningful baseball game.
Right.
Often by the time June or July rolls around, his team's 20 games back at first.
Yep.
They don't have anything to play for other than him winning individual awards, which is the best he can do when the team around him is built that way. Mike Trout needs to be the captain. He was named the captain of this team. He needs to play like the captain.
Yeah.
He's batting second. He has future Hall of Famer Mookie Betts in front of him, and he has future Hall of Famer Paul Goldschmidt right behind him. He needs to get on base, get hits. I'm not asking for a home run every time, but when he's striking out against guys who will never see another meaningful game in their life when they come into pitch, like it's brutal
Yeah.
to watch.
Yeah, I think, I saw the interview with him and Mookie after the Diaz injury happened after the Team USA game. And, Mike was talking about how much this means to him, how much fun he's having. That's great. I want to see him tonight before the game. I want a camera to cut to him, and I want to see him firing up those guys in that dugout. He's not marketed well by MLB. Mike Trout, most casual baseball fans probably wouldn't be able to recognize him if you showed him a picture of him. I want to see him tonight in a huddle firing up those guys. I want to see him pumping his chest when he makes a catch. I want to see him firing up the pitcher from center field when he makes a catch. I want to see the energy, like you were saying. He needs to be the captain of this team, set the tone tonight, and let's get this ball rolling.
Yeah. That's all, man. I'm proud of these guys for bouncing back last night, specifically Trey Turner. He better not sit another game this entire tournament.
Yeah.
But you just have to show more because that's not going to play again if Mexico rolls around. You're going to, excuse my French here, you're going to get your ass kicked.
Yep.
If they come back into town.
Yep.
So
I agree with that. And on that pleasant note, we will be moving into the final segment of today's episode where Caleb and I will be going over our preseason predictions for Major League Baseball. We will be talking about who we think is going to win each division. We will be talking about who we think will be playing in the wild card games and who will end up possibly playing in this World Series. So we have a spreadsheet that you guys can see on the screen here with all of our picks blacked out, which we'll go into detail here as we unveil them. But Caleb, I'm going to give you the honors. Who do you think will be crowned the AL West champion this year?
all right, man. My AL West champion this year is going to be your Houston Astros. The Astros, I kind of have this attitude with them that I do with another team that I'll talk about in a little bit. They need to prove that they can lose this division before I crown Seattle, or maybe you believe in the Angels, and that's great. But Seattle is the true runner-up to this team. I still think they're a little bit further away. The Astros are just built way too well, even with the Altuve injury, to lose this division.
Yeah.
So they are my winners, in my opinion.
I also have the Houston Astros, and I honestly, as I was looking at their depth chart when we were talking about the Altuve injury earlier, I almost came in here and switched my pick to the Mariners. But I think the Astros pitching is just too filthy. I think they're going to carry pretty hard this year. I think the Mariners will be a really close second. I love the Mariners roster construction, top to bottom. I do think the Angels will also be a sleeper pick this year. I'm going to ride the Angels train this year. I do it every year. I think this is going to be my last year doing it if they don't play the way that they should.
It'll have to be. Ohtani will be gone.
Right, right. I think if the Angels pitching takes a step forward like it did last year, and the caveat also has to be Anthony Rendon playing a full healthy season, even if he's 70-80% of what he used to be, I think they could be a sleeper team to not maybe not win the division, but finish up there. But they'll, on the flip side of that coin, if they don't play well, they are going to maximize, Ohtani's value at the trade deadline and move him. But also, I guess on the other flip side of that coin is if they are playing well, I think they're going to go out and get guys at the deadline and make the run because this is like the last dance for them. This is the last time that they're going to be able to have Otani and Trout all on the same team. And if they're in it, they're going to go hard. I would not be surprised to see them all over the top names at the deadline. And Cubs specifically, if the Cubs are out of it, guys like Ian Happ and Marcus Stroman would be perfect targets for those Los Angeles Angels.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think the Astros have the division. I think it's their division to lose. And I think moving on to the Central, I think this team also it's their real division to lose. My pick to win the AL Central this year is going to be the Cleveland Guardians. I don't think I'm betting on the Angels, and I do it every year. And I've bet on the Sox the last couple of years too. I'm done betting on the Sox this year, even if La Russa's gone. I don't think he was the whole problem. I don't really trust that they're going to be able to put it all together again this year. I think the Guardians have a great starting pitching rotation. Their bullpen, especially the back of it with Clase, is really good. Their bench is really good. I think their offense is built better for these new rules and regulations this year. They're a really fast team. They're going to steal a lot of bases. Josh Bell, the addition they made at first this offseason, is going to slug a lot of home runs in that lineup. The Twins are the other pick here, in my opinion. I don't really like their rotation depth as much, and I worry about their health. And a lot of guys in their lineup have pretty big strikeout numbers. I don't trust that over a full season. I think the safe pick here, even if this division is going to be super close, not necessarily competitive, I think the Guardians are a pretty safe pick here.
Yeah. Um, and I'm right there with you. I also chose Cleveland. They last year I think they came out and they really took control of that division at the end of the year, and I think my close team, I guess you could kind of flip a coin between the Twins and the White Sox. The thing about the White Sox is they just underperformed so much last season.
Right.
I feel kind of burned by it. Like I don't think I could pick them. They need to show that they are the team that they think they are.
The White Sox could do it. The White Sox could very easily win that division. They have a very, very
Absolutely.
good team. Very good team. I don't personally think they're going to put it together this year.
The subtraction of Jose Abreu and uh, some of their depth throughout that team as well. It's just it's far too great
I
in
don't
my opinion
I
to
don't think people are
overcome the Guardians.
I don't think people are really taking into account what Jose Abreu's loss is going to mean to that White Sox team.
Yeah, I agree.
All
Couldn't
right.
have said it better.
All right, Caleb.
My AL East team, kind of the first, in my opinion. Uh, this is a choice. I picked the Toronto Blue Jays. I think the Blue Jays this season are ready to come in, be a more mature team than they were last year, be a little bit more seasoned. I think a lot of it is going to depend on the health of their players. I know right now Vladdy is dealing with an injury. I don't think that will persist throughout the season. So I think you're going to have really good follow up seasons by Bo Bichette and Vladdy. George Springer's been there, he's been doing it for a while. And I think some of their starters are poised to bounce back.
You know what, Caleb? I can't wait to see where we differ because we haven't so far. The Toronto Blue Jays will win the East this year, but there's a caveat. I don't think they win this division without Yankee starting pitchers going down. I think
Well,
if
they already have.
I
I
know,
don't
but
think
I'm saying in the
to keep
long run,
going.
if the Yankees starting pitchers don't go down, I think they win the division. But
Yeah.
I'm predicting the Yankees have some injury troubles this year, which is why I made this pick. The Blue Jays also need to have Matt Chapman really step up his offensive game this year. I think in his walk year, he's going to have a pretty big year. His defense plays there. You've got Brandon Belt at DH first base this year. You have Whit Merrifield still there from last year. George Springer, like you said. You have Gabriel Moreno. No, he's on the Diamondbacks. That was for what's his name, the outfielder Dalton Varsho, on the Blue Jays now. I think they're a really, really nice offensive team. Jose Barrios really needs to figure it out. Can't have a 5 ERA again, but Alek Manoah is going to have a huge year. You got Kevin Gossman in that rotation. They're a really, really good team. The Yankees, like I said, they worry me with their injuries. I don't think the Rays are going to be really great this year. They're going to be good, but not great. But yeah, I think the Blue Jays, like you said, this is their year to step up and take that division aggressively. aggressively. I'm going to do all three of my wildcard teams at once, just so we can kind of talk about them. And this isn't necessarily in order, but my three American League wildcard teams are going to be the Mariners, Yankees, and the Angels. I'm putting them in the playoffs. This is the last year I'm doing it. I've rode this train for the last 2 years. This is the year the Angels will make the playoffs. Mike Trout is going to have a fire under him from the World Baseball Classic. Even if they don't make it out of tonight, he's going to get that taste of competitive baseball, which he hasn't had. I think the Angels will put it together enough this year to sneak out the third wildcard spot. The Yankees are an obvious second choice. I don't really see another team in the American League. I don't think the Twins or the White Sox will be better than the Yankees or the Mariners. The Mariners figured it out last year. They're only going to be better this year. I think these three are a pretty solid bet for the AL wildcard.
All right, love it. Um, I'll reveal my three here as well, and I'll give you my reasoning. So my three, and I did do an order. So I did pick an order, which, if it's wrong, whatever. But this is just how I viewed it going down. I do think the Yankees will just barely miss out on the AL East to the Blue Jays, so they'll secure that top wild card spot with some comfort. The Seattle Mariners, I think, are a favorite, in my opinion, to win one of the wild card spots. I don't see any controversy surrounding that. They have a really good team coming up. They're really young, and I think they're, especially if you get a good season out of Jared Kelenic, you are looking good for a good spot there.
Yeah.
So my third team, this is where we first differed, but I think the Minnesota Twins are going to have enough to push into a final wild card spot and beat out what I'm guessing is a Chicago White Sox or possibly a Baltimore Orioles or Boston Red Sox team.
Yeah.
Even the Rays, you could throw that in there. I think they'll all be kind of close, but I think the Twins will take that on one of the last games of the season.
I wouldn't be surprised. They're a talented team. They just got to stay healthy, and they got to not strike out a ton, in my opinion.
I think Pablo Lopez is going to be huge for that team.
I agree. So. He's looked great in the World Baseball Classic.
All right, man. Jump into the NL side of things. My NL West winner for the first time in not a long time because the Giants, but the San Diego Padres. That looks like what you say. The San Diego Padres are my pick to win the NL West for 2023. I think they made enough moves in the offseason. I think they have enough hype around that team that they're not going to have many problems winning that division.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you on that. I think this is the Padres' year to shine. I think they are built top to bottom to perform above expectations. I said it, I think, in the first episode. I think they're going to win 110 games this year if everybody's healthy. Juan Soto's due for a massive, massive year. Tatis for 120 games is huge. Machado with no pressure on an opt-out, huge. That rotation, huge. They got dogs all on that team. This is their year. If they don't win the NL West, I will be thoroughly shocked this year. Thoroughly, thoroughly shocked if they don't win the West. Probably, I know for a fact we agree on this pick here. The St. Louis Cardinals are going to win the NL Central this year. Again, another team top to bottom, depth really, really good, talented position players all around. The only thing that worries me is the starting pitching depth. I have no doubts that they'll figure that out, whether that's additions, whether that's guys in the minors playing well. This is the Cardinals' division to lose. The Cubs will be a close second, and the Brewers will blow it up at the trade deadline.
I, of course, have to agree with you. In my opinion, I think the Cardinals are just the most solid team in the division, without doubt. Their starting pitching struggles or unknowns are not enough to push up a Cubs team or a Brewers team, in my opinion. I think the Cardinals got a lot better just signing the catcher that they did. And I actually think they're going to get bailed out by some of the younger guys like Gorman and Donovan, who will continue to, well, in Donovan's case, continue to hit the way he did last year. Gorman's case will kind of bounce back and be the guy that he was supposed to be. So, no doubt there. I think the Cardinals got this one in the bag, and I think that to seal it up by kind of that mid-September range, maybe early September, they're going to have to make some sort of starting pitching move at the deadline. I think injuries will kind of force their hand on that.
Mm-hmm.
My NL East pick, the NL Beast, I went with the Atlanta Braves to repeat winning the division there. That's not to discredit the Mets, who have caught some really tough breaks injury-wise, and the Phillies, who were just in the World Series. I don't think those are bad teams at all. I just think that the Braves have done enough to lock up their core for the next decade, and I think that they have a really serviceable team that's going to win them that division.
Yeah, I disagree with you on the team, but I agree in your philosophy there. And I just want to circle back to the NL West real quick. I did have one note that I want to mention. I think the Diamondbacks are going to be the sleeper in that division this year. And my prediction for them this year is that they acquire a pitcher at the deadline with multiple years of control. And my hot take is that that pitcher is going to be none other than Corbin Burns. I think they get him and they get a deal done and lock him up for the core for their eventual playoff run.
I
Um,
love it.
my NL East team is the Philadelphia Phillies. I think the Braves, I think, are the most talented team in the division. I think the Phillies are the hungriest, in my opinion. I think the Mets are good. I don't think they're as hungry as the Phillies. They're not going to get Harper back until somewhere around midseason, and he's going to be limited just to DH duties. So that kind of complicates roster construction just a hair. But their pitching needs to hold up in order for this to be good. Aaron Nola needs to ball out. The guys they got at the deadline this year, or the offseason this year, need to play well. The Braves will be a very, very, very close second. I could see this division coming down to one game, whether that is between the Mets and the Phillies, the Braves and the Phillies, the Braves and the Mets, whatever it may be. I think this is a one game winner division this year. Their lineup is great. I do have questions about Swanson not being there to anchor shortstop and how Von Grissom will respond to that. Sean Murphy's a huge addition for the Braves. I think he's going to do wonders at backstop for them. And the Mets seem like one of those teams, in my opinion, who look really, really good on paper, but have so many risks and question marks that I can't comfortably pick them to win the division if we're
Yeah.
going for a full season projection. So that's another differ that we have there. I think our wild card teams should be the same, maybe a little different because you have the Braves winning and I have the Phillies winning. But my three wild card teams in the NL are going to be the Dodgers, Braves, and the Mets. I think the Cubs will be okay this year. I don't think they're a playoff team. I want to be wrong. I want to be proven wrong. I want them to catch fire in the second half, go get some guys, and make a run at that third wild card spot. I just don't see it happening with the strength of the Mets and the Braves, and the Dodgers will somehow find a way to make it to the playoffs. All three of these teams super talented. We could see a sleeper. I just don't really see a sleeper in the NL this year as much as I do the American League. I think these three teams are pretty solid bets to make wild cards if they don't win their divisions.
Yeah, and I'm like you said, I'm right there with you. In that order, I don't think the Dodgers like embarrassingly lose the West. I think
No.
they'll be competitive, but enough to lock up that first wild card. I think the Phillies will run into year, whether it's underperforming or an injury or whatever. I think the Phillies will run into some of that. I think they'll still lock up that second wild card spot over the Mets, but then the Mets will come in that third spot. I think that Steve Cohen is not afraid to get the job done when it comes to a trade. There's not really anybody he can sign right now.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'd say he would go make a big signing. There's not really that guy that's out there that's waiting to be signed. Um, they have a solid team. They have a really good rotation if it stays healthy, and I just think unfortunate injuries to Nimmo and Diaz and um, one more big one I think that I'm struggling to think of, but um, I just think that that's unfortunate for them, and I don't know if I would have picked them to win the division anyway. I feel like my heart was always saying Braves, but the Mets are definitely um, still competitive enough to take up a wild card spot. And in my opinion, in the NL, uh, the National League in general, I just think that these six teams are in a different class than anybody else.
Yeah, I agree.
It was very easy to pick these teams, especially
Mm-hmm.
over the AL. So
Yeah, no real questions there. All right, before we do the World Series, I just want you to reveal your loser first. Who do you have losing the World Series?
my loser is the San Diego Padres.
This is fun. This is fun because my loser is also the San Diego Padres. Yeah, and I think you and I have the same winner for the World Series. So let's just go ahead. Go ahead and show
All
me
right.
your winner.
All right. My winner is your Toronto Blue Jays.
I do not have the Blue Jays. You proved me wrong.
Oh,
I believe the
oh.
Houston Astros are going to
Houston
repeat
Astros.
their World Series victory. I think they pick
It's
up some
an easy
pieces at the
pick.
deadline. It is an easy pick. It's the safe pick.
I think it's the easiest pick. It's because the Houston Astros, they've proven they can do it.
Hmm. Yeah,
I just think we're going to get like insane performances from the Blue Jays.
I would love to see a Blue Jays Padres. I think they were my, earlier in the offseason, I think I had the Blue Jays in the World Series, but the Astros are the Astros. They're on their dominant run right now. Back-to-back championships would not surprise me in the slightest. I think this is a very safe pick. The 2-1 seeds making it to the World Series. I don't know. I think it's a safe pick, and that's probably why I went with it.
If it makes you feel better, I had the Blue Jays beating out the Astros in 7 in the NL or ALCS, and in the NLCS, the Padres beating out the Cardinals in 6.
Yeah, I think
So
the Cardinals
those
will
are my
make a deep run.
ALCS and LCS. I think they get farther this year. I still don't think they get that World Series. I think the Padres are just too good.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and move on to overall award predictions. I will go ahead and reveal my American League MVP. And that, I don't know. I hope I filled this out. I don't know if I did. I may need to fill this out real quick. My American League MVP is going to be Shohei Ohtani. I think he is just on this trajectory where I really don't know who is going to beat him. And it's the combination of being that dominant pitcher and that dominant hitter is going to be so hard for anybody else in the American League to top. It's honestly not fair to the other guys who are having really, really big years, but it just goes to show you the pedigree that Shohei Ohtani has. I think he's in really, again, this is a safe pick, but I think Ohtani is odds on pretty favorite to be the AL MVP.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. I agree. It's going to be Ohtani. He should have won it last year, and it literally took an Aaron Judge record-setting home run season, and it was still, in my opinion, kind of a toss-up. You had media guys fighting about who the MVP was going to be.
Yeah.
So Ohtani, he does something that nobody else can do at his level,
Mm-hmm.
and until he stops doing that, there's no reason for him to stop winning the MVP.
Yeah. I agree.
Fatigue of winning the MVP is not a good enough reason to take that award away from him.
Yep. Could not agree more. Who's your NL? Give me the NL MVP.
My NL, and this is going to be my most homer pick. It's going to be Nolan Arenado.
Not a bad pick.
This guy finished third in MVP voting last year, and you know what? I think he's pissed off. I think he hears people making fun of him and laughing at him because he opted into the rest of his deal with St. Louis. I think he's going to come in, he's going to have a chip on his shoulder, and he's going to play at a level he has never played at before.
Arenado, and defensively. I mean, he's a phenomenal defensive third baseman.
I think that was a given. I think we're going to see like unreal numbers from him.
Right. I think Arenado's top 3 in NL MVP this year. My odds-on favorite for me to win the NL MVP this year is going to be Juan Soto. I think he has a phenomenal year for the San Diego Padres. I think we see him as the Juan Soto that we knew was going to be that generational superstar this year. You put him in that lineup with all those big names that he has around him, he's going to put up absurd numbers. And Manny Machado is also going to be up there again, dominant player in his own right, but I think Juan Soto is really going to show out this year, ball out for that Padres team. He's my consensus NL MVP this year. But again,
if he wants that extension, I think he's going to have that year.
I think he's going to get his extension regardless, but I think if he wants more money, he's going to have that year.
If he wants to break 400, I think he's going to have that kind of season.
Right. I'll go with my AL Cy Young here. This one might be a little interesting pick, but I'm going to go with Alek Manoah of the Toronto Blue Jays. I was comparing his and Dylan Cease's years last year because Cease was my other AL Cy Young pick. Cease has more strikeouts. They had really similar numbers last year. Manoah pitched 196 innings. Cease pitched 184. Cease walked more batters and struck out 50 plus more batters than Manoah did. But I'm going to give the edge to Manoah this year because if he performs at these levels again, he faces harder competition. And I know we're playing more teams than just our divisions this year, but if he can put up these numbers against the Yankees, against the Orioles, against, more National League powerhouse teams, I think I'm going to give the edge to him. I don't know if they put up relatively the same numbers again this year. In your opinion, if Cease and Manoah are within, because Manoah had a 2.24 ERA, Cease had a 2.20. They each made 30 plus starts, almost 200 innings each. If they put up these similar numbers again, would you give Cease the Cy Young based on the 50 plus more strikeouts alone?
Yes, I would, because I did pick Dylan Cease with the Cy Young. I think he's going to repeat his success last year. I mean, he had one of the most unbelievable runs through 14 games last year of one or less earned runs. I think we're going to see something similar from him. I know he's had some alarming starts this spring, but we see that every year from guys. We saw that from Max Scherzer a week ago, and Max Scherzer's going to come out and still be Max Scherzer. So I have no doubts about Dylan Cease. I think he's got this one um, not in the bag, but I think with Verlander leaving the AL and going over to the NL, I think it's almost more of a sound bet that Dylan Cease has a real shot at winning that Cy Young.
I will give Dylan Cease credit where credit is due. Last year, his ERA was 2.20, and he was in the top 10% in the league in expected ERA. His expected ERA was 2.70. Manoah, on the other hand, his ERA was 2.24, and his expected ERA was a whole run higher at 3.31. Um,
Yeah.
but I think the expected ERA probably factors in the teams that they're playing, which you factor in the teams that Manoah faced most often last year. Might be more reasonable to project a higher ERA.
Right.
But
He's definitely facing better teams in the East than Cease was in the Central.
that could also tell you that Manoah got a little bit more lucky with some plays last year, that his expected ERA was much higher than what it actually was. So I think those two guys finished 1-2 in the American League, barring some huge surprise. Who's your NL Cy Young winner?
I'm excited about this one. My NL Cy Young winner is going to be Zach Gallen of the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think
Love
this
it.
guy, you saw, I'm going to steal a line from the Blue Jays. You saw the trailer last year. This year's the movie. I think this guy's going to light it up on fire. Nothing against Sandy. I just think that Gallen's going to edge him out a little bit. But you're going to have Gallen and Sandy 1-2, which is just a reminder. I think we should all send a photo of the Cardinals' top prospects from like 5 years ago with Sandy and Gallen right there.
Yeah,
Send that to John Mozeliak in a frame and just say, "Please, thank you.
yeah.
Sorry, sorry that you traded both of these guys for 2 years of Marcell Ozuna."
Right. No, that's tough. I think okay, so I'll give a little bit. This is probably also, this isn't a homer pick by any means. I'm gonna say Hayden Wesneski is gonna finish top 10 in Cy Young this year. That's a homer pick, but I think who's going to win the NL Cy Young this year is going to be Justin Verlander, and here is why. Justin Verlander last year was absolutely dominant with the Houston Astros, top to bottom, had an absolutely phenomenal season. But I think the difference maker for me this year, comparing him and a guy like Sandy Alcantara, Justin Verlander is going from Martin Maldonado as his primary catcher in Houston, who last year finished with a negative zero point -0.8 framing rating, to Thomas Nido with the New York Mets, who finished with a 7.2 frame rating and finished in top 10 of all catchers in all of baseball last year with the framing rating. You give Verlander a catcher who can position more of his pitches in the zone, who already, I mean, he posted a 170 ERA last year. You give him a guy who's better at his job than Maldonado is. I don't even want to know what he's doing. He's going to be facing harder pitchers in the National League East, but to that point as well, he's going to be facing a Phillies team who is going to strike out a ton between Schwarber and Castellanos and Hoskins and Bohm. Those are all a bunch of big strikeout guys. Miami's not going to be a solid hitting team, and he's going to chew on the Washington Nationals this year. I think Justin Verlander is going to show that age isn't a number, and he is just going to absolutely dominate this year. He's my safe pick for the NL Cy Young, and I think his ERA this year is probably, I'll put this out there too, bold prediction, I think his ERA is lower than last year's.
All right, Aaron. If he wins it, he's the first pitcher to win one in both leagues since who?
Oh, shoot. I probably should know this. First pitcher to win a Cy Young in both leagues since... I don't know. Who was it?
His teammate Max Scherzer.
Max Scherzer. That's yeah. Should have known that.
I didn't realize these guys were in Detroit together for so long.
That Detroit rotation too. If you want to
So
find,
Scherzer was
yeah.
in Detroit from 2010 to 2014. Verlander was there from 05 to 16. He was traded during the 16 season.
Yep, almost to the Cubs. Cubs could have had him.
So
They didn't do it.
4 or 5 years they were there together, and now they're reunited.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll round out this episode here. I'm just going to go ahead and reveal both of my Rookie of the Years here so we can round this out. Because there's not a whole lot to talk on about him. This is more so what I think projection-wise is going to happen. American League, I think Gunnar Henderson, it's his to lose. Baltimore Orioles prospect. He is just ridiculous. He is the #1 prospect in all of baseball. Had a really nice cup of coffee last year. Posted almost a 1 WAR in just 34 games. His projections for this year have him posted around a 4 WAR according to Fangraphs. 20 home runs, 346 on base percentage. He's the whole package. He's going to play a great third base for that Baltimore team, who is up and coming, and I think is going to see a surge this year, but maybe not close to the top of that AL East. And then Corbin Carroll in the National League just signed the big extension. super super fast player. He's going to steal a ton of bases. He is going to be a staple in the middle of that Diamondbacks rotation for years to come. Or not rotation, that Diamondbacks lineup for years to come. He's going to steal a ton of bases. He's going to get a lot of extra base hits, a lot of triples this year. He's got power with the bat. Jordan Walker comes up as the only other guy that I think might be able to touch him this year in the National League. But those are my two Rookie of the Year picks.
Yep, I'm right there with you. I did go with Walker over Carroll. I think that extension is going to bring a little bit of added stress and also just sort of an expectation for him to play at a higher level. And I wonder if that's going to cause him to sort of play at a lower level for any reason. Hot take, though, I think Jordan Walker is going to hit 25 home runs this year.
Would not surprise me.
I think he'll easily hit 25 home runs. And then Gunnar Henderson, I almost went with his teammate, also top prospect, Grayson Rodriguez. But I just think that Rookie of the Year voting has always kind of favored hitters over pitchers. And whether Rodriguez has a massive year, I don't think it'll matter. I think whatever Henderson does will be enough to edge him out.
I agree. Yeah. I think solid picks all across the board. We'll keep tabs on these as the season goes along and see if any team surprises us, any team disappoints us, White Sox. I think these are great picks. I think this is going to be a super fun season. Next episode, we're really going to be able to dig into the final roster construction for these two teams as spring training wraps up. We'll give our Cubs and Cardinals season predictions, team MVP, T. Cy Young, team Rookie of the Year, and maybe a couple bold predictions for the season in general as we get ready to get this underway. Caleb, anything else before we round out this episode?
Nah, man. I'm excited for the season to start.
I agree. Let's go Team USA tonight. Anybody? Hopefully this will air the day. It'll air tomorrow, so we'll know what happens tomorrow if you've watched it. But I'm rooting for Team USA, rooting for Mike Trout, all those guys tonight. Have a great performance. Thank you, everybody, if you've made it this far, for listening to this podcast. We really enjoy doing this. We want to keep doing this. If you could drop us a subscription, a like, wherever you're listening or watching us, we would really, really appreciate that. And we will see you guys next week. Peace.
Yes.